Butyrka, when Mafia gangs ruled the Cellblocks. Hit that subscribe button if you dare, because once you step into this story, there's no going back. And trust me, the shadows of Butyrka don't let go easily. The sirens were already screaming when officers dragged the unconscious inmate out of Cell Block 3. Blood trailed behind him in a thin, unsettling ribbon, shining under the fluorescent lights like a warning. Guards shouted orders over each other, boots pounding down the concrete corridors of Russia's most infamous pretrial jail. Butyrka, a place designed to break men, now looked as though something inside it had finally snapped. Lieutenant Alexei Morozov arrived at the scene moments later, his breath fogging in the icy corridor. The inmate on the stretcher was Pavel Arinchev, a mid-level gangster awaiting trial on extortion charges. He was supposed to be protected, not for his own sake, but because he had information that could bring down one of Moscow's most powerful crime syndicates. And now someone had tried to silence him. Morozov crouched beside the bloodstain left behind. It wasn't much, but it was enough to tell him this wasn't a prison scuffle. The cuts were precise, intentional. Someone wanted Pavel alive, but terrified. Someone wanted to send a message. He stood and scanned the cell block. Prisoners watched from behind iron bars, their eyes cold, calculating, waiting. They knew something. In Butyrka, nothing happened without permission. Not an extra blanket, not a cigarette, not a drop of violence. Every move inside this place belonged to someone, and that someone wasn't the prison administration. It was the Mafia. Throughout the 1990s, the Russian underworld had planted its roots deep inside these walls. The gangs controlled everything from contraband to who slept where. New inmates bought their safety with money, favors, or pain. Every corner of Butyrka operated under a second set of laws, the laws written by criminals. Morozov knew all of this. What he didn't know was why Pavel Arinchev had suddenly become so valuable and so dangerous. When he entered Pavel's cell, the signs of the attack were still fresh. A torn mattress, blood droplets sprayed in jagged arcs, drag marks leading to the hallway. But something else caught Morozov's eye, a crumpled scrap of paper wedged behind the heating pipe. He pulled it free carefully. On it was a single word, written in shaky handwriting. List. His stomach tightened. Weeks earlier, rumors had circulated that Pavel had compiled a document detailing bribery schemes, hidden accounts, and a chain of prison officials linked directly to Mafia operations. A list that could topple power structures both inside and far beyond these walls. But no one had ever seen it, until now. Morozov pocketed the paper and stepped back into the corridor. Guards were already blaming rival inmates. Prisoners were already crafting alibis. But Morozov could feel it. This wasn't inmate against inmate. This was bigger. Coordinated. Someone outside Butyrka had reached inside, manipulating its criminal ecosystem like puppeteers tugging on strings. As he tried to piece it together, a guard jogged up to him, out of breath. "Lieutenant, you need to see this. Basement level." The basement. The one place even guards tread carefully. Morozov followed him down a dim staircase, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. When they reached the lowest level, the guard pointed toward a rusted door that appeared to have been forced open. Inside, a single naked bulb flickered weakly. And on the floor, half buried under a pile of old blankets and broken crates, was a small metallic lockbox. Dust-covered. Unmarked. Morozov knelt. His pulse quickened. If Pavel's list really existed, if it contained the names people whispered about, this box could change everything. He reached for it, fingers brushing the cold metal. But as he lifted it from the debris, he realized something horrifying. The lockbox wasn't locked. And inside, it wasn't empty. What Morozov found next would shatter the investigation before it even began. The lid of the metal lockbox creaked open, revealing not documents, not weapons, but a single cassette tape wrapped in a strip of faded cloth. Lieutenant Morozov's breath hitched. The tape meant someone wanted a message preserved, something spoken, something undeniable, something dangerous enough that writing it down was a death sentence. He lifted it carefully. Scrawled across the plastic in smudged black ink was one word. Names. Behind him, the guard shifted nervously, as though the walls themselves were listening. In Butyrka, they practically were. Morozov pocketed the tape and left the basement immediately. Every instinct told him eyes were on him. Eyes loyal not to law enforcement but to the criminal hierarchy buried deep within these walls. The moment he stepped back into the light of the main corridor, he noticed it. Prisoners had stopped talking. They were watching him with a kind of silent, predatory awareness. The tape was a threat. Or a warning. Or both. He made his way to the administrative office, where a secure player still existed for evidence review. Once inside, he locked the door, shut the blinds, and pressed play. Static. A breath. And then Pavel Arinchev's voice. Shaky, raspy, terrified. If you're hearing this, it means they know I talked. Morozov leaned in. They control everything here. Not just the cigarettes, not just the beds. They control the guards. The food. The phones. They bought this place long ago. And now they want me gone. Another breath. You asked about the list. It's real. I hid the names where no one would ever think to look. 8 people, high-ranking, untouchable, connected. Some inside Butyrka, some outside. But one of them, he's the reason this prison will never change. A loud bang cut through the recording. A door slamming, someone yelling in Russian. Pavel whispered urgently into the recorder. If they find me, they'll bury the truth. Look for the mark. He wears it proudly. A crow's wing on his wrist. The tape went silent. Morozov froze. A crow's wing. He knew that symbol. It belonged to a notorious mid-90s gang called Voron, the Ravens, known for running smuggling networks and prison bribery rings. Their influence supposedly died years ago. But clearly, someone had kept the legacy alive. Before he could replay the tape, a sudden knock rattled the door. Not a normal knock. 3 sharp taps, a pause, then one more, a coded rhythm Russians in the criminal world often used. Lieutenant, a voice called gently. Open up. Warden wants to see you. Morozov didn't blink. The warden hadn't sent anyone, he was sure of it. He slipped the tape into his coat pocket, turned off the player, and approached the door slowly. Give me a second, he said. He unlatched the window blind by just a centimeter. Standing outside were 2 guards he recognized, both known for accepting bribes from inmates. One of them, Officer Kirov, had a sleeve rolled up slightly. Enough for Morozov to see it. A black wing. A crow's wing. His blood went cold. He stepped backward silently. The lock on the door trembled violently. They were trying to force their way in. He scanned the room quickly. No weapons. No second exit. Only the narrow window behind the filing shelf. He grabbed the edge of the filing cabinet, shoved it beneath the window, climbed up, and pushed the pane open. Cold winter air blasted in. The corridor door cracked under the pressure behind him. He didn't look back. He dropped to the snow-covered ground outside, landing hard, pain shooting up his leg. But he got up and ran toward the perimeter lights. He needed to get out. He needed to get Pavel. He needed the real list. But as he reached the far wall, he heard it. A voice echoing from a guard tower. Lieutenant Morozov. Stop. Now. Spotlights snapped toward him. They weren't trying to capture him. They were trying to silence him. And somewhere inside Butyrka, Pavel Arinchev was lying in a hospital cell, vulnerable, unprotected, while the people he'd exposed were closing in. But the real nightmare came moments later, when Morozov realized something he had missed. Pavel never said the list was hidden inside the prison. Which meant the person guarding it was still out there. Snow whipped across the prison yard as Lieutenant Morozov sprinted into the darkness, boots crunching against ice, breath burning in his lungs. Behind him, the tower lights swept like search beams hunting a fugitive. He had seconds, maybe less, before the guards aligned with the Voron gang cut him off completely. He slid behind a concrete barrier and pressed close, heart pounding. The cassette in his coat felt heavier than metal, heavier than truth. The list wasn't in the prison. Pavel had hidden it somewhere else, somewhere only Morozov could reach before the Ravens did. But to get there he had to survive the next 5 minutes. A guard's radio crackled above him. He jumped the window. Check the north wall. Warden says take him alive, but you know the rest. Alive was a lie. Morozov knew every rule in this place, written and unwritten. The guards weren't hunting a traitor, they were hunting a liability. He crouched low, slid along the barrier, and spotted a maintenance truck idling by the side gate. Snow covered half the windshield. The driver was invisible. Morozov took the risk. He darted forward, yanked the passenger door open, and climbed in, nearly colliding with the stunned driver, a young orderly whose eyes widened in shock. "Drive?" Morozov whispered urgently. "Don't look at the yard." The kid hesitated, trembling. "Lieutenant, what's happening?" "Just drive." The truck lurched forward. In the side mirror, Morozov saw guards swarming the fence, shouting, pointing. But the falling snow masked the truck's path, giving them just enough cover to slip through the service exit. 5 minutes later, they were on the main road, the prison fading behind through the storm. Morozov exhaled slowly, then turned to the driver. "You didn't see me," he said. "And you didn't give anyone a ride tonight." The kid nodded, terrified. Morozov stepped out at the next intersection, disappearing into the night. Now he needed to find the list. And the only person who knew where it was barely clinging to life. The hospital block, Butyrka. Pavel Arintsev lay beneath a single flickering bulb, pale, breathing shallowly. The attack had nearly finished him. 2 guards stood outside the infirmary room, but not for his protection. They were waiting for orders. Morozov approached quietly, using shadows to mask his presence. The corridor was nearly silent, save for the distant echo of prisoners shouting. He stepped behind the first guard, grabbed him in a tight hold, and lowered him to the ground without a sound. The second reached for his radio, but Morozov struck first, knocking it away and forcing him into unconsciousness. He slipped into Pavel's room and shut the door quietly. Pavel's eyes fluttered open. You shouldn't be here." "They're coming for both of us," Morozov whispered. "Where's the list?" Pavel swallowed painfully. "Not a list, not anymore. Too dangerous. So I spread it out." Morozov frowned. "Spread what?" "Information. Pieces. Ledgers. Audio. Hidden with people who'd never cooperate with each other. Insurance." Pavel coughed, wincing. "Find the first name. Everything starts with him." "Who?" Pavel's lips trembled. "Sergei Korman." Morozov felt the blood drain from his face. Korman wasn't a criminal. He was a deputy minister, a man who sat on anti-corruption committees, praised by Western governments, photographed shaking hands with presidents. "You're telling me Korman is a raven?" "Not just a raven," Pavel whispered. "He's the one who brought the old gang back. He owns the guards. He owns the warden. He owns this prison." The corridor outside suddenly erupted with shouting. Footsteps. A door slam. The ravens had found the unconscious guards. Pavel grabbed Morozov's jacket weakly. "If I don't survive, expose him. It's all that matters now." Morozov tightened his grip on Pavel's arm, but it was too late. The monitors began to beep erratically. Pavel's breathing collapsed into shallow gasps. "Stay with me," Morozov urged. But Pavel's eyes drifted shut. The only man who could tie the conspiracy together was gone. The door handle rattled. Morozov backed away, slipped out the emergency exit on the far side of the infirmary, and disappeared down a dark stairwell as armed guards rushed into the room behind him. He made it out of Butyrka unseen, but the truth now felt larger, sharper, far more dangerous than he'd imagined. Sergei Korman was untouchable. A man whose signature appeared on anti-corruption laws by day, and whose tattooed wing ruled the shadows by night. Morozov checked the cassette in his pocket. The only remaining voice of the dead. The only leverage against a criminal empire hidden behind political power. He walked into the freezing Moscow night with one chilling realization. Pavel Arintsev wasn't the last target. He was the first. And if the ravens realized what Morozov now knew, they'd come for him next. If you thought this story was intense, there's another one waiting in the dark. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.